Hi Year 7, Mr. Tapley here for your next lesson of Year 7 Geography. This lesson I'll be explaining the Geography DEV, the developmental task, which is kind of your rough draft before the CAT, before the end of term assessment, and then we're done for 2020. So I'll be outlining the instructions, the different sections of the DEV, what you need to do, where you can find support, and yeah, if you have any questions or concerns, of course the best thing you can do is ask a question, either face-to-face or send me an email. But yeah, let's see if we can explain the Year 7 Humanities Geography DEV. So the main focus of our curriculum, of course, this term has been livability, so anything that impacts our health and our happiness, and that is the focus of the DEV. You are investigating the livability of a specific country, a nation around the world. So to explore the quality of life in your select nation, you will be researching one livability factor. So we've kind of spent one lesson over the past couple of weeks looking at each of the main livability factors. So access to water, access to food, education, employment, housing. So all of those are livability factors. All of those impact our health and happiness in a good or a bad way, depending on where you live. So to investigate livability around the world and in your specific nation, you'll be researching just one livability factor, and then evaluating how this influences livability. The different topics we've examined are in the class slides, in the textbook as well, but for a bit of a reminder, we've put them here. So environment, access to fresh water, food, infrastructure, safety, housing, employment, education, healthcare, and arts and culture. Using the support resources provided, we've given you a few websites which should help you complete the CAT and the DEV. Using the class slides, the textbooks, and your own student notes. This is where the people who have been taking good summary notes, who have been completing the lesson activities in their digital or their physical notebook, this is where you'll have a much easier time. You've done the hard work already. Using the support resources provided, you will need to outline the livability factor you have selected. So what is it? What do I mean by infrastructure? What does that actually mean? And explain how this factor is a positive or negative influence to livability in your nation. Not just in general, but specifically your nation. How does education impact the livability in Afghanistan? How does housing impact livability in Brazil? Your response should include data, statistics, and evidence. So that's the important thing you need to include to get full marks in the DEV and the CAT. You can't just say X. You need to tell me why X is correct. You need to prove it. You need supporting evidence. And that can be livability data. So the unemployment rate in my country is X%. That can be statistics. So 3 million people in this country do not have access to food and water. Or it can be evidence. It can be specific examples in your country. Record your responses in the table below. I'll show you where that is in a moment. And we have provided a sample answer, an example of how you should be modeling your response, your own answer. Record your answer in the next available space. The rubric for the DEV, fairly straightforward. Livability factors research. So section 1, which I'll go through in a moment, is worth 3 marks. Data interpretation, so you guys are going to be flexing your knowledge of salts, so graphing, that's going to be 3 marks. PQE summary, so your ability to examine data and then describe it, to summarize it, evaluate it, using our PQE tool, our template, 3 marks. And then successfully uploading the graph that you will be interpreting, that's just 1 mark, so 10 total marks. And those are the 4 websites you can use to find information for section 1. We have used some of these in class. So this is the United Nations Development Program. And if you click on any of these countries, let's go for Germany. It tells you their Human Development Index, which is a fancy mathematical formula that basically assesses livability. So this is their livability score. So 1 is a perfect score. As you can see, Germany, very good country to live. 4th best country to live in the world, allegedly. And if you go down, it even gives you more information about specific livability factors. So you've got life expectancy here, so that's under health. If I open that up, I can get even more information. It's quite a lot, don't get too concerned. Education, income. This is the second website, a bit more colorful. But again, each of these countries you can select. And each of those little flower petals, I guess you'd call it, relates to one of these different livability factors. So health, education. So let's say I click on, let's go local. Let's click on Australia. If I scroll down, it tells me their score for these livability factors. It gives me some specific information. And if I click on these, it'll give me more information about those livability factors. So lots of information there. UNICEF country profiles, again, click on a place around the world, gives you lots of information. This one we will be using in section 2, so you're going to want to understand how to use this one. So let's say I'll click on Australia for now, but I'll come back to that one in section 2. Anyway, let's scroll down to section 1. So section 1, you're outlining a livability factor, just one, explaining the positive negative influence to livability in your select nation. Be specific as possible. This is a sample response that we've given you for Australia, so you can't choose Australia for your country. Pick something else. There's a few to pick from. Education is the livability factor that we've been exploring in our sample answer, and you can see we go through in great detail. What is education? Is it high or low in that specific country? Giving you specific numbers, some data, some statistics. So the average years of education, a percentage of people who have completed secondary education, name dropping some of the good universities in Victoria, how that impacts livability of people around the world and in Melbourne. So that's essentially what you're doing for section 1. So pick a livability factor, give me some statistics. That's really the biggest difference between getting 1 mark and 3 marks, is a lot of people will give you the right answer, but the main difference that people forget to add is you have to prove it. You need evidence. So make sure you add lots of numbers, lots of statistics, lots of examples that are relevant to your livability factor in your specific nation. So that's section 1. I should say also that the aim is to complete this across 2 or 3 lessons, really. So you should be trying to budget, okay, section 1, I can do that in 1 lesson. Section 2, maybe I'll do that in the 2nd lesson. Section 3, lesson 3, something like that. Section 1 will probably take you the most time. So don't stress if you're going a bit slowly in section 1. Section 2. Using the following website, which I showed you before, that was the Data World Bank website. Identify one graph that is relevant to livability in your select nation. Click on the graph title for a more detailed and informative view, and all you have to do in this big box is upload a picture. So screenshot, copy paste an image of your graph into this box here. So if we go back here, so I clicked on Australia as my country. I've got GDP, so gross domestic product, we looked at that in economics. So it's basically how much money the country has. We've got school enrollment, so that would be a graph relating to education, obviously. We've got life expectancy, so that's the average amount of years you will live living in Australia. That's related to health. So all of these relate to different livability factors. So let's say I click on life expectancy. So you just need to click on the title. Website can be a bit funny sometimes. There we go. And you can see I've got a bit more information about that specific livability factor. So all I would need to do here is copy and paste that image. So screenshot it into that box there. And that's 2A done. Now in 2B, I show off my understanding of SALTs. So scale, axes, labels, title, source. So the checklist, I guess, of the key features that all graphs need to be informative and accurate. So complete the following questions, interpreting the data within your livability graph and demonstrating your understanding of SALTs. Once again, we've given you a sample response. You might look at this and think, oh my god, this thing is so many pages long. That's only because we're giving you as much information as possible to help you to complete this to the best of your abilities and to, again, develop your skills, develop, before the CAT. So this is an example of what you might look like. So you've got your graph there and 3 key questions. So the first question is, what is the title of the graph? So we're looking at T for title. So I would say unemployment with intermediate education Australia. Too easy. So it's just usually going to be, what is the graph showing, where is it showing, and when is it showing it? What is the y-axis measuring? So A for axes, we have a vertical and we have a horizontal axis. So y, x. Silly way of remembering things, but I always remember y as vertical because y looks like a V and it's next to V in the alphabet. Anyway, or it looks like an arrow pointing up. Anyway, so what is the y-axis measuring? I would look for my L, my labels, and what is the unit of measurement. So is it measuring degrees, temperature, kilograms, kilometers? What is it measuring? So that would be my scale, S. So look for my numbers. Then what is the x-axis measuring? So that's my horizontal axis. And what is the unit of measurement? Same thing. So that's the sample response. Your 3 responses would go here under the student answer section. And again, they're just responding to the graph that you've put over here. So I'd be looking at this, looking for my salts, and answering the questions. So that should take you much less time than section 1. So you might be able to do 2 and 3 even in one lesson if you use your time wisely. So this is the final part of the DEV, sorry, I keep doing that, where you summarize the information within that graph. So using the PQE tool, so in English we have TEAL, topic, evidence, explain, link, and that helps you structure your writing, your response. In geography, when we look at geographical data, when we look at livability information, we can summarize what we're seeing and what is in the graph of the map by using PQE, so pattern, quantify, exception. So use the PQE template to interpret and summarize livability levels illustrated in the above graph. The PQE summary should first describe what the graph is measuring, so before you really even get to the first letter, you need to tell me what I'm looking at. Otherwise, I'm not going to know what you're talking about, what pattern. So the first sentence is, well, what is the graph measuring? The second sentence is that P, that pattern, so outline the overall pattern or trend, and that's usually going to be, you know, is it going up or down? Is it increasing, decreasing, left, right, sideways, backwards? Is livability improving or decreasing in your country? Provide examples or quantities, that's Q, to demonstrate this pattern. So if you're telling me that livability in education is increasing over time, you need to prove that. So you could say, well, in 2000, education was here, but in 2010, we've increased. And you'd give me specific information there. So names, numbers, examples. Then finally, you would identify an exception to the pattern. So usually there will be 1 year where the pattern has been broken. So maybe education is improving for every year, except in 2008 when Mrs. Hapley was hired as a teacher. And then it came down, but then it went back up. So you just need to look for something on your graph that doesn't quite fit the pattern. So you can see everything's a nice little straight line up here. I've got a weird little bump here. That might be my exception. Or I might talk about this down here at the bottom as my exception. So it increased pretty steadily from 2015 to 1970, but here, nice and slow. Oh, sorry, this is life expectancy, not education. Anyway, cool. So again, we've given you a sample response, giving you the actual template in the student answer thing down here. So you've got some good guidance as to how this should look. So first sentence, what am I looking at? So tell me what the graph is about. Be specific. Second sentence, pattern, quantities, your quantify, your examples, exception, and then the final thing you need to do is add your source. So I've gone Data World Bank, country Australia. You would just need to tell me what country you're looking at using that website, and then just copy the URL into the source here. So that's all I've got to tell you guys about the Geography Dev. If you have any questions or concerns, please let your teacher know. Again, there should be 2 or 3 lessons provided in class to get this done. If you think you need an extension or you need extra support, the best thing you can do is let your teacher know ahead of schedule. If your house is burning to the ground, you don't just kind of sit there and wait for it to be done. You call the fire department. So if there's a problem, you need to let someone know. But yeah, make sure you guys are using all the support resources available. Make sure you're asking lots of questions. Make sure you pay attention to the rubric. So ask your teacher, how do I get 3 marks for this section? How do I get 3 marks for this section? And it's usually going to be that extra detail, that extra 1 or 2 sentences where you add in some statistics and you explain what they mean. Yeah, so that's all I've got to say, guys. Hope you're well. Hope you're enjoying a well-deserved break over the weekend. And yeah, cheers.